June the 19th, 2021. And in the papers today, the Sun papers, they're reporting that the Amtrak has decided to renovate the big tunnel, the Amtrak train tunnel through the Northeast, starting in Baltimore downtown. It's going to take about a decade. It's going to cost about $4 billion. They're going to change the name to the Frederick Douglass Tunnel. I think that's very appropriate because Frederick Douglass left here in Canton on a train that went through the same area, the Northeast corridor, from Baltimore to Wilmington to Philadelphia to New York, as this tunnel will go through. And I think it's very apropos on this day, on Juneteenth, to name that after Frederick Douglass.
My name is Bruce Shaw, and I am a rising fifth grader at Hempstead Hill Academy. I'm joined today by my parents and my teacher, Mr. Prada, Ms. Costello, and Ms. Schultz. I'm so excited to be with you all on Juneteenth to talk about the fearless Frederick Douglass and his many acts of bravery. Douglass inspires me to be brave and is a great role model for those in our community. Frederick's birthday was never recorded, but he estimated he was born around 1817. He was born and raised in Talbot County, Maryland. He was raised by his grandmother, who was a slave. When he was a child, he was taken and sent to Baltimore, Maryland. He worked as a servant there in the household of shipbuilder Hugh Auld. Auld's wife, Sophia, taught Frederick how to read and write, but then her husband told her to stop because it was against the law to teach slaves how to read. But Frederick still found a way to learn, as some friends secretly gave him books. Frederick's commitment towards his own personal education and that of other slaves is one way that his bravery really inspires me. In 1838, Douglass escaped from slavery. He disguised himself as a sailor and headed north. He made his way to New York City. There he married Anna Murray. They became active in the abolitionist movement. Abolitionists wanted to abolish slavery. Douglass was a great storyteller. His stories about his life got the attention of William Lloyd Garrison. He was the editor of the abolitionist newspaper, The Liberator. Garrison encouraged Douglass to write about his experiences. Douglass's use of his words to share with the world his experiences and to fight against slavery is another way that I find him incredibly brave. As Douglass grew up, he developed ideas against slavery. He believed in human equality. He found that idea in the Declaration of Independence. Douglass asserted his bravery to ask Abraham Lincoln to convince black men to join the Union Army. He also helped to pass the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, bringing rights to all black people across the country. I think this makes it so appropriate that we gather here today on Juneteenth to celebrate fearless Frederick Douglass. I feel very proud and excited that Frederick Douglass historical marks will be placed around Baltimore to remind us of his bravery. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Give it up one more time for Rita. So I'm a former history teacher, so I too have a 45-minute lecture that I'm going to deliver extemporaneously. Just kidding, I'm going to be quick. No, but this is a great day, and it is so good to be with you all here today. And I think a lot about the history that we tell and the history that we don't tell. You know, I think about folks like Frederick Douglass, who, as Bradley said, have just contributed so much to this American experiment. And I think about other abolitionists that paved the way for the great community that we now get to live in. And I also think about those that have been lifted up in our history that are far more complicated. You know, we're in Canton. Not too long ago, several neighbors set out, led by Mark, Sheila, and others, and Ray, to remove the John O'Donnell statue from the square. And we should be clear, O'Donnell was complicated. Just like any historical figure, it wasn't all good, it wasn't all bad, but the decision that I think we are making as a community, and hopefully as a country, is that slavers have no place on our public pedestals. People like Frederick Douglass, abolitionists, belong on plaques. And I think a lot about Baltimore, this fascinating town that we live in. You know, I think about folks like Frederick Douglass who were slaves in this city. What a fascinating contrast to be a caulker down in Fells Point, to have free black people and slaves living together in this city, to be one of the birthplaces of the Civil War, when Union troops marched down Pratt Street and were attacked, and a riot was set off. And that's what prompts Abraham Lincoln, to suspend habeas corpus and really starts the Civil War as we know it. You know, I think about Baltimore, this town in all right, you got this. I think about Baltimore, this town in. Yeah, I'm gonna turn it down a little bit. Hang on. Okay, I don't need it. I've been told I don't need it quite as much as everyone else. Can you all still hear me? Yeah. Great. I think about this town where in 1910, we're the first city in America to legally, through ordinance, segregate ourselves by race. I think about redlining. One of the birthplaces of racial redlining was right here in Baltimore. I think about racial housing covenants, where neighborhoods would decide that no blacks, no Jews could live here. I think about all of this weighted, tough, freighted history. And yet I think about people like Frederick Douglass, who forged a completely different path. And he taught us what it means to be a real American. And to not only fight for your own freedom, to get on that train and liberate yourself, but to liberate so many others. All of what Ray and Bradley shared with us, that it wasn't just about Douglass as this amazing individual, but about what Douglass was able to do after he escaped from slavery and forged a path for so many other people. And what I think is exciting is that Baltimore gets to make its own history. We don't have to be confined by what's happened in the past, but we have to understand it. We have to know it. We have to know folks like Frederick Douglass. We have to know John O'Donnell. And we need to be honest about who they were and not glorify folks who owned other human beings. That's why I was so proud of the work that Sheila and Mark and Ray and the Canton Anti-Racism Alliance did, because it wasn't just that they took the podium down, they wrestled with the history. Ray looked it all up. We were honest about who this man was and who he wasn't, and decided as a community that he didn't belong up there on a pedestal, but that Douglass does. To me, that's what anti-racism is about. It's about tough interrogation with who we are, how we've come here, how we've either been benefited or disadvantaged by the history that we stand upon, and that we make better choices. And that's why I'm so proud of all of us today for being a part of this next Baltimore, where we get to decide that it's not the O'Donnells, it's the Douglasses that matter the most. And we get to learn from amazing bards and historians like the folks standing behind me. And we get to transfer and pass that knowledge onto the folks like Bria, who are going going to bring us into a great new chapter for the city. I'm excited for when you take my job and come be a city council person and then become our mayor. So I want to end by saying this. We have so much work to do. When I look at a school like Hampstead Hill Academy and the amazing education that Bree has been able to get and so many others here, and I think about my own kids who will also be going there, I also think about the schools that I taught in. Schools that didn't have heat, didn't have air conditioning, didn't have drinkable, potable running water. Schools that looked more like jails than the kind of place that we should be sending our children. So we should be very clear that while we are here today to celebrate, we have so much more work to do. And I just want to close by saying that I am just incredibly proud because honestly, when I got to be city councilman about 5 years ago, there was no Canton Anti-Racism Alliance. There was no foundation yet for what we're seeing now, where we're determining the history that we want to write. And so again, I want to thank Mark for his leadership. I want to thank Sheila and Ray and everybody here for helping to build the kind of city that I want my daughter and my son to grow up in. So thank you again.
Mark, do we have a Frederick Douglass statue comment? Mark Canton, President of the Canton. I actually really just want to introduce Shante Daniels from the Baltimore National Heritage Area, who's going to speak to us a bit more, and then I think we're going to have the moment that we are all waiting for, which is the unveiling of this gorgeous historical town.
Good afternoon. I think you can hear me too if I didn't use this. I'm pretty loud now. I am shocked and amazed at the diversity of this crowd and that you have come out here to celebrate this. This is what we need. We need representation from everyone. This is not my story. This is not a black story. This is an American story. History does not belong to anyone. It belongs to all of us, and it must be truthful. But on behalf of the Baltimore National Heritage Area and the many people that made this project possible, thank you. Especially to Dr. Ray Barr, Tom Chalkley, and I think future Councilman Mark Edelson. But let us not forget,
Irish cat.
had it not been for Frederick Bailey Douglass and the others in their sacrifice and perseverance, we would not be here today. I would not be here today. Douglass and others made sacrifices, and so we are here to celebrate June 19th for the freedom of enslaved people. I am hopeful that we will continue to be inspired to celebrate the many who came before us. Now in this time that we give recognition to Baltimore's Black Americans, people of color, all people of color have contributed and made contributions to this city, the great state of Maryland, and this nation. So thank you, and I am delighted that the Baltimore National Heritage Area, through the funding with the National Park Service National Heritage Area Program, and the state of Maryland, we are allowed to have this plaque here. Have a wonderful day. Celebrate Juneteenth.
picture. Tom, get in there.
Hold on, be careful. Go block.